All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you, everyone. I am gratified and overwhelmed by your recorded applause. It means so much to me and my shallow Hollywood heart. I am excited about today's show. It is you know what they used to say in the 70s, some of you older boys and girls, they would say, it's a cavalcade of stars. The word cavalcade I'd never heard until I heard cavalcade of stars. It actually does apply to today's show. It does, yes. I've got the great John Rothmann joining us, which is happening in the first hour. He is the professor, and he can lead us through these troubled times, perhaps. There is a lot going on, and we'll review it in detail. I've got video to share with you. I've also got some offbeat stuff that isn't directly related to Trump or the dismantling of democracy and the U.S. government. I do have things that have nothing to do with that. And our featured performer today, in hour two, David Cay Johnston makes a Wednesday appearance. I know. I'm excited. We got Kim to kind of show up.
Kim, how are you?
And we got Albert to kind of show up. So
Albert, thank you.
It is very, very exciting. And I will also share with you that the cavalcade of stars is not over. Belinda Waymouth joins us on Wednesdays. I know. We do a segment called It's the Planet, Stupid, and there is a lot to speak about there as well. Before I get right into it, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you. Look at this, right out of the chute. Romania Animal Rescue, Inc.
Nice.
They are rescuing animals, and it is a $20 super sticker. They are big supporters of the show, and I give you guys a big shout out and an understanding that we're on the same page. Those sweet creatures. Romania Animal Rescue, Inc. Thank you for a $20 super sticker. Super stickers and super chats are live today. We'll try to get all your super chats on during David's segment, during John's segment, etc. And we'll try to handle everything as it comes in. Wes is an OG on this show with a $5 super sticker as well to get us started. So thank you so much. It is an all-star Wednesday, says Jim Shields. Rothmann, David Cay Johnston, Belinda, almost makes another day under Trump tolerable. It is a little weird that, by the way, apologies to you MAGA folks who come here. We're not big fans of Donald Trump. It's not even Donald Trump. Yes, it is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It is. But it's also his co-president, Elon Musk, who's doing a lot of damage. And then it's not even him. It is the Project 2025 people who are in place, and they're doing exactly what they intended to do, and they're doing it at the warp speed that they intended to do it. Katie Lynch, our collective cup runneth over. Indeed, it's a very, speaking of cups, before I get too heavy into, the political takedown, I am excited about Lucy McAllister, my favorite McAllister.
Yeah.
With a $20
Big shout out.
We met actually someone else in Lucy's family. I think her name is Lauren McAllister.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she took the number 2 spot that Kim used to have. Lucy is the number 1 spot. My favorite McAllister.
Probably down around 5 by now, I think.
Kim was number 2.
Yeah.
And Lauren, as it turns out, because I didn't know about Lauren until she came on with a super sticker one day, she became number 2. So you got Lucy, Lauren, and then way, way down is number 3 is Kim. So that's the way it works. But Gwen Roberts, thank you. Wow. Thank you. Very generous super sticker crew today. Gwen Roberts, shout out to you.
Big shout out.
Thank you for being here in a $20 super sticker. I wanted to mention the Coachella Valley coffee. I am drinking from the I made stovetop espresso. Some of you know what this is. Probably all of you know what it is. I want to say some of you. It's not some so esoteric kind of endeavor. It is, those. You put the espresso in and you essentially boil the water on the stove, and then percolates up, and it is just so rich and delicious. And I have the Oca espresso from Coachella Valley Coffee. These are one of the Mark Thompson Show mugs, and they are sort of collector's items. This is a chit one, and the reason they are the reason they're particularly collector's items is because we're probably going to go with a different merch company where we think we're going to be able to do more fun kind of merch. It's not just going to be mugs and T-shirts type thing. And these guys have been a bit disappointing, but they these mugs are great. I mean, I have them, and I love that the chit is on the. It's just one of the phrases that I have on it. But I would say grab it while you can, because the new mugs will make these collector's items. And these behind me are collector's items already because we've moved on. We don't do the black mugs anymore. We do the white mugs. So I think that's a good breakdown of Stovetop Espresso, the
covered the
merch,
important
the
basics.
merch situation, right? The cavalcade of stars. Let me just think of what else I have to.
So I looked up the word cavalcade because when you said it, I thought the stars would be marching toward me.
I'm betting it's related. I don't know anything about the word cavalcade except for the 70s thing, as I mentioned.
Right.
I'm betting it's something to do with horses or something. Am I right?
You're correct. It's a procession of riders or horse-drawn carriages, a ceremonial procession or display. Yes.
Yeah, it's because if you look at the Latin root, it's calvo or something. It's like that refers to horses.
I'll ding you for your root word knowledge.
I gotta. Thank you very much. I do feel so much smarter. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, everybody. Before I get you heavy into the politics and the dismantling of government, let me share one last gasp from Las Vegas. This is a man who put $1 million and he stacked it out on the sportsbook desk.
What?
He put $1 million on the Kansas City Chiefs to win.
What?
I know. Here it is. We are showing it to you now. It is. That looks like banded. Maybe those are I think those are banded $20,000 amounts. So each one of those banded bricks is $20K, is what I think.
Would that be with $1,000 bills or $100
No,
bills?
with $100 bills. Yeah.
Okay.
But you'd need tons of them still.
This is how poor I am. Is there such a thing as $1,000 bill?
No.
Okay.
But Rothmann will tell you that there used to be, because he's a student of all that history. There used to be $1,000 bill, but there's not any longer. The most, the highest denomination is the 100. And who is on the 100? Albert, I ask you. It's in all the hip-hop songs. They say, hit me with what?
Franklin?
Benjamin Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin?
Exactly right.
Yes.
Right. Hit me with the Benjamins, right? There are no $1,000 bills anymore. Well, you're going to be soon no bills at all. You guys are aware of that, right? That's the Musk plan. Yeah, we're going, and this wasn't just an Elon Musk thing. A cashless society is, it's the way the state keeps track of you, right? That's a very real thing.
What did they bring all these millions in a duffel bag or what?
He brought them maybe in a wheelbarrow. I don't know how he got them, probably in a duffel bag. Yeah, but as you look at it, we're showing it to you. Those who are just listening, it's still up there. This guy he's got a lot of jewelry on and, he looks like he could be an athlete. Doesn't
he kind of looks like a former wide receiver, Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, he looks like Deshaun Jackson. Very good.
He's all blinged out. So what did he bet? $1 million on who to win?
On the Chiefs.
Oh, ouch.
And I'm not sure, but I think that they didn't win.
No.
I mean, they certainly weren't winning. The good thing about the game was, and maybe for him, it was over early. You didn't need to worry. I mean, that bet was lost right away. Sometimes those are the easiest ones to wash down. So
there goes that cool mill.
Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What else do I have? Something else that's not necessarily related, because I've got Rothmann and David Cay Johnston on deck, so I'm trying to give you a couple of things that aren't necessarily related to what's happening at the federal level, which is depressing and awful, but it's important, and there are a lot of specifics, and I do want to share them with you. But I did want to mention that apparently there was an underground concert last night in New York City, and it was performed by Paul McCartney.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, Paul McCartney sold out MetLife Stadium with 82,500 people at MetLife Stadium. He sold out 3 nights in a row, okay? But last night in New York City at the Bowery Ballroom, it was just 575 people at capacity. Not even 600 people could take in this show of Paul McCartney. Apparently, it was like Beatlemania. The word got out, and people, there was not advertised anywhere, not talked about anywhere. It just got out, and people flocked to the Bowery in New York City. And Paul McCartney started his concert with Let Me Roll It. And he did that impromptu concert, and it, for many, reminded them of the rooftop concert that the Beatles famously performed. That was in London in 1969. And he does this occasionally. When he comes to New York, he'll do these underground shows. It is pretty wild. I have a question for Albert. And I don't know if this is technically Will Albert. No, I think it is kind of a Will Albert.
This is Will Albert Know It.
Yeah. This is a pretty easy one, Albert, but I still think on some level it could be challenging because it does involve an era you were not part of. Paul McCartney was part of a band called the Beatles, right? Who else was in that band? I wonder if yeah. Okay.
I think he will know it.
The band was the... hang on a second. That's right. Kim, you think he will or he will not?
I think he will know it because Albert is a musician, so he'll know it. He's actually quite a
no Googling, Albert. There is no Googling permitted, please.
Hands up.
I'm drawing it out, but I can give you a quick answer. That's George Harrison, John Lennon, and Ringo Starr.
That's right.
All right. Wow, that was very impressive, sir. Very impressive. I read the story and I thought to myself, I wonder if Albert even knows the Beatles. I know he probably knows of their existence, but really, but as it turns out, he probably knows a lot about the Beatles, right? A lot about their music.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
I was in a couple bands, and I'm a drummer, so I feel like you have to know if you're a musician.
Very, very cool. Well, there you go. Nicely done. Albert surprises and is impressive in his Will Albert Know It outing. All right.
No movies, please. No movies.
No movies, but he's good on music.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, everyone. It is not an intended... ask him if he can name all of the original Rolling Stones. I don't think I can name all the original Rolling Stones.
I don't think I could
either. Sorry, you've got me. I know Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. And
that's it.
I don't know. Coca-Cola may have to sell more drinks in plastic bottles.
Come on, we're going back to that?
It's if President Trump's tariffs end up making aluminum cans more expensive. This is an announcement from the chief executive of Coca-Cola. He made this announcement to investors. There's a 25% import tax on all steel and aluminum entering the United States. That could end up driving up the price of aluminum cans. And that will pinch Coca-Cola.
Can we go back to glass bottles? Do we have to do the plastic?
In December, one of the reasons they do plastic and aluminum, of course, is because of the weight. They have to transport it over long distances, and the weight is how they have to pay for it. So it's way more expensive to transport glass. That's why you see so much mineral water in the plastic bottles, which, of course, are horrible for you. And that plastic and all of that gets into your body. You can even taste the plastic a lot of the time. But aluminum, again, was the way Coca-Cola was going. And they are now saying we may have to swing back to plastic. The beverage giant scaled down its sustainability target of using 50% recycled materials in its packaging by 2030. Now they're saying they're going to use 35 to 40% by 2035. Environmental groups have labeled Coca-Cola as the top global plastic polluter for 6 consecutive years.
This is Casey Kasem in Hollywood.
Yeah, top global plastic polluter for 6 consecutive years on our survey, Coca-Cola.
Just stick your plastic straw in your plastic Coke bottle and suck up a bunch of microplastics. Good job.
If one package suffers some increase in input costs, this is the call, what he actually said, we continue to have other packaging offerings that will allow us to compete in the affordability space. Again, this is the guy who runs Coca-Cola speaking. He says, for example, if aluminum cans become more expensive, we can put more emphasis on PET bottles, meaning plastic bottles. The overall word on sustainability when it comes to Coca-Cola is grim, but they have tried to move toward more aluminum products and away from plastic in general in a move toward sustainability. But the tariffs may move them back, as I say. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
that's the word out of Coca-Cola. Nothing like heavy metals in your brain besides plastics. I mean, there's not a lot of good options. If you can find glass as the container for whatever you're drinking, you are doing well. That's what you should be shooting for. I get Mexican Coke, says Tammy. They are old school and glass. Well, there you go. Now you just have to worry about the Coke. I don't think that stuff's really great for you. But you know what? Look, enjoy your life. You got to enjoy your life.
I was reading a study the other day that shows that since 2016, the amount of microplastics in our brain has doubled. And so now, on average, according to this study, most of us are walking around with the weight of equal to a plastic spoon worth of microplastics in our brains.
It's so disturbing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we're making decisions as though we have all that plastic in our brains.
Exactly.
We really do. We really do struggle. Yeah, I don't know. It's very it's disturbing. Excuse me. It's my Coachella Valley coffee. Oh, my God, I love it. All right. Let me just mention, I guess, the Patel thing first, because that is kind of what we were advertising. It's tough. You know, we have a choice. I'll just take you into our little world, you know, on YouTube and even on other audio platforms. You know, we're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, et cetera, as an audio podcast. You have a challenge, which is to, you know, title the episode something. You know, look, you know, nothing that we just talked about is mentioned in the title. And you have a limited number of characters you can use to write your headline and all this stuff. And Kim and I really linger over this and try to figure out what we should do. And there is so much going on right now. I mean, to me, Musk and Trump's the front man, but Musk is effectively, I mean, meaning with great effect, dismantling the federal government. It's an extraordinary thing to see. It's an extraordinary thing to see I'm going to say informally deputized guy, meaning he was not elected, he was not vetted, he was not brought into government at any official capacity. It's an extraordinary thing to see someone just based on wealth and heft because of business success. It's an extraordinary thing to watch them spearhead dismantling the U.S. government. That's exactly what's happening. I mean, I can go down the list of things that are already being dismantled. It's frightening. It's not just USAID. The Office of Consumer Protection, that's a huge, huge office. You know, when Wells Fargo was found out for those fake accounts, they were using many of their many of the people who are banking at Wells Fargo were just there with, they have, basic checking accounts or savings accounts. They were opening up their accounts under their names additionally at Wells Fargo. So there were a bunch of accounts that they didn't even know existed. They were fake accounts. Yep. And the only watchdog group to handle that is being closed down by Elon Musk. Yeah.
What could go wrong, Mark?
Yeah, the Office of Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, I think it's called, CFPB.
Let the games begin.
Yeah, and by the way, they're the same group that takes the medical debt that used to swamp you and ruin your credit score, takes that off of your credit score. You're wondering where that came from? CFPB did that. This is the agency that Elizabeth Warren put together. And Elizabeth Warren, no politician is perfect. I mean, there's a lot of, you can always find something. But I think there's a lot of virtue in the work that Elizabeth Warren did, and that was one of the most virtuous things she did. I mean, consumers and U.S. citizens need protections. So anyway, that was another thing that they did. And when it came to the overdraft limits, and credit card limits, there are limits on how much they can charge you. There weren't before CFPB stepped in. So he's already closing down the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And the reason he's doing it is because they're the watchdog for him, for his stuff. There is this constant thing that Trump does, and you'll hear it when we run some video, which is, what's in it for Elon? There's nothing in it for Elon. He's successful. He doesn't need anything, the money, doesn't need to. What are you talking about? He's taking apart the very agencies that are most vexing to him. He is taking apart the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau for a reason. He wants to launch his own currency. He wants to launch his own payment system. He has big dreams. The payment system would exist on X. He wants to turn X into a payment system-based platform. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they'd be the watchdog on that. They would protect consumers who are involved on that platform. He has to get all kinds of approval for that, but not anymore. I'm sure it's going to be fast-tracked, and now he's eliminated the very agency that would be the cop on the beat. And he even tweeted about this. He put it on his X platform, RIP, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So he labels something wasteful. Donald Trump doesn't care, and it's gone. It's outrageous. And Congress just looks the other way. So you really see a single-handed dismantling of U.S. government on the part of Elon Musk, as everybody just nods, and we learn he gains access to so very much. And so the last thing I'll say to you on this, but it won't be the very last thing, because I think this is the ongoing narrative that we have to follow, is that as Trump and Musk hold their sessions in the Oval Office, their joint pressers, as Donald Trump signs executive orders, et cetera, which he's certainly within his right to do, there is a discussion of waste and abuse, because they know that lands with the American public, and it should. But there is no math being shown. So something is labeled as wasteful. The bureaucracy. We all hate the bureaucracy. I mean, it's true. We all do hate the bureaucracy. But you can label an organization, USAID, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, whatever it might, the Treasury Department, EPA, FAA. The government is big. Plenty of places to park that criticism of all that bureaucracy. And then you just eliminate 90% of the workforce. That's what they've done at USAID, and that's what they're going to do across the bureaus, and they may eliminate some completely. But as I mentioned before on this show, the way that you can fast-track all of that is to take their money and take their staff. You don't have to eliminate it. To eliminate an actual department, to eliminate many of these agencies would take an act of Congress, but you can effectively eliminate it. So I want you, as he does all of this, as he eliminates agency after agency, after he essentially defangs all of these protective mechanisms for consumers and for American citizens, I want you to note that they never show their math. They never show you the fraud they talk about. This fraud and abuse, they never talk about it. They talk about it in general terms. You'll hear it in just a few minutes. I'll play the video for you. Oh, we found so much fraud. It's unbelievable. Trump says, there's so much fraud, it would be easier to list the situations in which there wasn't fraud. Great. Show me. It sounds horrible. Show me. But there isn't any showing of the math. And so finally, I think this is getting out there. But this is a good point. Dave says only Congress can create departments. DOJ isn't even officially sanctioned department. That's, of course, very true. And, we made that point. In fact, I thought it was somewhat laughable that DOJ was this thing with Ramaswamy and Musk, because I thought DOJ isn't an official thing. They have no official power. They won't be able to do anything. They can make recommendations. Boy, was I wrong. And by the way, David Cay Johnston agreed with me. And the reality is, if they play by the rules, they don't have any power, but they're not going to play by the rules. It is Elon's show, and he is deciding what things exist and will continue to exist, and what things exist and will go away. Breaking news by executive order, the Constitution is to be replaced by the Trump Doctrine, currently in draft form, but I'm sure it's going to be beautiful, says Louis. Yeah. How about that? Let me just look to see. And so in a couple of minutes, I have John Rothmann coming on, and we will go over it. I'll play you a little bit of Musk in the Oval Office with Donald Trump. I found it particularly annoying that Musk said yesterday that everything would be transparent. Nothing they are doing is transparent except Musk's financial disclosure, says Karen Cooper. Of course, that's true. They say a lot of things that are absolutely not in evidence, and the transparency is one of those things. I will mention something to you now, but I'll probably mention it again before I run the video, and that I thought one of the richest things said was right at the beginning of Elon's run. And Musk, first of all, of course, the visual is, Trump sitting there and Musk stepping forward, and it's really Musk's show. But I thought that Musk would say, there is a bureaucracy here that has taken charge, and it's an unelected part of government. You have people and systems that are unelected that are fighting the other branches of government. And I'm saying that because this is a guy who is unelected, and he's taken a wrecking ball to government. So it's such a weird thing that he would make the point that the unelected parts of the U.S. government right now are seizing control. Dude, you are the highest profile unelected part of U.S. government right now. You're not even in an official capacity. You're just a bro with Donald Trump. You paid to get him elected. Congratulations. That might have not been the only thing you did to get him elected. And now you're calling out aspects of government that don't involve the voice of the voters. You don't represent the voice of the voters. The argument to smash the bureaucracy is just a cheap, lazy stunt, says Nevets Forever, to destroy the government and privatize it for the oligarchs. Yeah. Don't know. Hey, what's happened to Kim's, what you want to do on that, Albert, with Kim?
What's wrong? What do you mean with me?
Well, her, it's pixelated here. Maybe it's not pixelated anywhere else.
Oh,
you see how it's
looks
pixelated?
normal on my end. I don't know.
It does? Maybe that's just my computer.
Yeah, everything looks good on my end too.
Oh, okay, good. So this is the plastic in my head that's now beginning to take hold. Yeah,
that's all right. Put down the Coke in the plastic bottle.
Yes, exactly.
Okay? Stop it.
Musk should cut his government contracts, says Michelle Walton. Exactly. I mean, he's got so many federal government contracts to the point that I think his companies might not exist without those contracts. I mean, they're wildly supportive of his success. But again, no evidence about these U.S. agencies that he's shutting down. No evidence, and even in the New York Times, it's finally making it. Among Mr. Musk's claims, which he offered without providing evidence, was that some officials at the now gutted U.S. Agency for International Development have been taking kickbacks. He said that, quote, quite a few people in the bureaucracy somehow had, quote, managed to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, without explaining how he had made that assessment. He later claimed that some recipients of Social Security checks were as old as 150. Quote, "We are actually trying to be as transparent as possible. So all of our actions are maximally transparent."
Well,
He continued,
if they're so transparent, where's the proof
exactly.
on that?
He continued, "I don't know of a case where an organization has been more transparent than the Doge organization." You really don't? I mean, that's laughable. I mean, they're operating in deep secrecy, surprising federal employees, descending on those agencies at the last moment, gaining access to sensitive data systems. He is a special government employee? What the hell is that? He is not obligated, according to the White House, to even produce a financial disclosure statement. They've said, the White House is saying, he's in a special category and it will not be made public. So, again, we're going to bring on John Rothmann here in just a moment, but at this special signing of executive orders, Donald Trump was doing his thing. And again, that's within his right as president to, execute these executive orders. Whether or not he knows what they are, doesn't matter. I mean, he's allowed. But as Musk steps forward and he talks about waste in government and closing down these government agencies, keep in mind the agencies he's closing down to an agency from FAA to CFPB to USAID to EPA, they all are agencies that were regulating Musk in a way that he didn't want to be regulated. And so they serve that end. What's in it for Elon? He gets the government off his back, and he does what he wants, and he reshapes American government into what will ultimately be an autocracy. Without question, it's already beginning to happen. So this is serious stuff in Washington, and we will watch it for you as long as we are able. They've already cowed major broadcast networks, as you know. ABC, CBS doesn't even report on much of this anymore. And NBC. They all, in one way or another, have begun to bend to the wishes of the new administration. They don't want to lose their licenses. And they have other regulatory actions that they're counting on the government to produce. And they don't want to be running afoul of the government. And eventually, I would say, this platform that we're on, they're going to be challenged. And maybe the algorithm will beat down shows like this one, even if we're allowed to continue. And I'm not even a flamethrower. You know me. I'm not like, there are shows that are way, way more intense than this. But I try to give you basic truths and tell you what's happening. We have great minds on this show, I think, coming through. And so I hope that we can continue here. I do think that there's an aspect to total domination that may threaten even the kind of free speech that we're used to in the U.S. It's all about power. Yesterday's press conference clearly demonstrated Elon has more power than Trump, says Amy B. Yes, that's true. And I mentioned this the other day. It's not just money. And it's not just his organizations, Musk's. It's power. Absolutely true. I weep for my country, says Man from the West, 420. Check out that 420 reference, huh, Albert? What is that? Yeah. Where are my weed?
Where are my weed smokers at?
I'll tell you, there's one of them, right? I mean, that's the only way to get through it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It's the only way to get through it sometimes. You gotta medicate. I get my medication the natural way. I turn to the sage, the professor. He's a presidential historian. He joins us every Wednesday to offer a couple of thoughts on what's happening in the world and here in the U.S. How about it for John Rothmann, everybody? These are troubling times from the standpoint of the way in which, without check, it would seem, Musk and his henchmen are being allowed to dismantle U.S. government. Can you give me a thought on that, John?
It's an attack on democracy. Anything we thought that was negative about Donald Trump is magnified immeasurably. Let me just point out to you that it is unprecedented for a president in the Oval Office to allow someone to pontificate as we saw yesterday. There is no question that your entire conclusion about Elon Musk is correct. It is a threat not to our government, but to our democracy. And I want to be crystal clear about this. Yesterday in the White House, an AP reporter was not allowed to come into the press conference to pose questions, was expelled from the press room because the AP calls it the Gulf of Mexico. And Trump is saying, oh, no, it's the Gulf of America. This kind of action is beyond comprehension. And let me just be clear. Tulsi Gabbard being confirmed is ridiculous. And I'm going to hold this up. I hope you can see it. This is Kash Patel's book, Government Gangsters. When you read this book, as I have done, and you realize that this man may be the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, it's shocking. And Robert Kennedy Jr. just passed a major hurdle and may be confirmed as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. This is incomprehensible, and I want to make a confession on this program. I was wrong. I've spoken all over the Bay Area, and I suggested this could never happen because the Republicans would stand up. Tulsi Gabbard was confirmed by a vote of 52 to 48. Only one Republican, Mitch McConnell, deserted. This is, to me, a scandal. Let me just say a word about Ukraine.
Hold on a second before you get to Ukraine. I want to just round off the point you just made. Play me a minute of Sheldon Whitehouse on the floor.
Sheldon Whitehouse was brilliant.
He was great, talking about Tulsi Gabbard and that to which John is talking about right now, that which John is referring to.
Albert has the clip?
Yeah, here, go ahead. Go ahead, Albert.
Russian state TV has called Ms. Gabbard our friend Tulsi. The Russian newspaper, Komsomolskaya Pravda, published an op-ed, and it was titled, "The CIA and FBI are trembling. Why Trump protege Tulsi Gabbard will support Russia as head of national intelligence." So the Russians are telling us pretty plain and simple, she's with us. If you look at some of her behavior, particularly relevant to the DNI position, she has constantly opposed Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which is a key source of foreign intelligence for our national security, and which I guess I'd have to say in this location, presumably is useful at getting intelligence on Russia. She's not alone. Over at the FBI, Trump's nominee for FBI director, Kash Patel, we just found out, was paid $25,000 by a Russian filmmaker with Kremlin ties to participate in a documentary attacking the FBI, which is an adversary of Russia's, which spends a great deal of time and effort keeping an eye on Russia's adverse intelligence activity in the United States.
Okay, Albert, thank you. That just gives you a little bit of an overview. The White House is typically brilliant and was very good, and that was just an initial breakdown. There was more. Go ahead, John. I wanted you to say that.
I just want people to understand. I am not an alarmist. I am not a nut. I'm somebody who understands the Constitution and the way it works. And this is not the way America should be working. It's not the way the Constitution should be functioning. Look what the President of the United States is now doing. He's going to talk to Vladimir Putin to settle the Ukraine crisis. And if you listened to Pete Hegseth, who is the new Secretary of Defense, they're not going to give the Ukraine anything. Their goal is to eliminate this. I mean, I'm almost speechless, which is hard for me to admit. I find this to be such a national tragedy and such a national disgrace. And I'm not saying this because I'm a Democrat or a Republican or anything else. I'm an American, for God's sake. And I can see the handwriting on the wall. When you have a president of the United States who has no respect for the Constitution, who has no respect for our government, we've got a big problem here. And the American people will wake up. The only question in my mind is, will they wake up in time? And I hope that we, and I say we collectively, do.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know what in time is. I feel as though I don't mean to be an alarmist either, and I don't want to heap kind of depressive news necessarily on top of other news that will depress people. But I feel as though the time to wake up was probably prior to this election.
You're absolutely right, but I can only deal with where I am today.
Sure.
Let me tell you something. The Republican Party has lost all credibility. And if you think the Republicans took years to recover from the Depression and Herbert Hoover, when the judgment comes down, I can assure you the Republican Party will suffer. More than that, did you hear J.D. Vance saying that we should ignore the courts? Has he not read Marbury versus Madison? Doesn't he understand that the whole point of that decision in 1803 was to establish firmly and precisely that the courts were there to check an executive branch which went off the rails? Ladies and gentlemen, we are off the rails. There can be no doubt about it.
The comical part of the Vance and others' statements regarding the courts is that they've gone to, nobody elected these judges. Why should we pay any attention to them? I mean,
yeah, it's absolute rubbish. And the misquoting of history. I mean, I want to deal directly with these problems, and I know I'm followed by one of the top scholars in the country, and I'm sure he will affirm everything we are saying. One last point. The nomination of Robert F. Kennedy is going to be considered. And all I can tell you is the idea that an anti-vaxxer and a conspiracy theory embracer would become the Secretary of Health and Human Services for the United States of America scares the living bejeebers out of me, and it should scare everyone else as well.
It is a time, interestingly enough, John, maybe you can tell me how we got here or how you see this. It's a time during which we have a lot of conspiracy theorists from the fringes who are now occupying the mainstream of government.
Now, all you have to do is read Kash Patel's book. It's filled with conspiracy theories. Let me just share with you the back panel. It says a sinister cabal of corrupt law enforcement personnel, intelligence agencies, and military officials at the highest levels of government plotted to overturn a president. I mean, I can go on with this. I just want to give you that one line. That's the key to this book. This book tells it all. And this is the guy who will be, before the end of the week, evidently, the Attorney General of the United States of America. You know, I go back to my days with Richard Nixon. As bad as many of the things that Dick Nixon did were, this is nothing. And what Nixon did was nothing compared to what is happening now. And the real question is fear and intimidation. You're right about the networks. They will take this on so carefully. They're afraid of losing their licenses. I mean, you understand my frustration and my anger and my fury at the fact that there are still people that I talk to who defend what Donald Trump is doing. It's just astounding to me. Can you imagine if the Democrats had taken George Soros and given him a forum in the Oval Office? The Republicans would have been indignant. Can you imagine what the Republicans would have said if a Democrat ignored a court order? I mean, these are unprecedented times and something we all need to be aware of. And may I tell you, I only regret we have only a few minutes to do this. We should be doing it. I was thinking, you know, our former colleague at KGO, Jim Easton, passed away at the age of 89. And if Jim were alive, and he became a conservative at the end of his life, if Jim were alive, he'd be I think he'd be going crazy over all of this.
Well, this isn't conservatism. This is some kind of.
But when you listen to Mark Levin
autocracy.
Or you listen to Sean Hannity, these are not stupid people. These are not people who are not uneducated. And how they can support this? Where are the Republicans, for God's sake?
They're cowed. They're scared. They're cowed. You know that. And these media pundits, Hannity and the like, it's all money, power, whose voice is big. I don't really believe they have the best interest of the country.
They
at
don't.
heart. I mean, they're all playing
interested
for
in being reelected. That's what they're interested in.
Luis says, John, do you still have blind faith in the American people? We, in quotes, collectively put these clowns in power, and half the country thinks this is all great. You want to respond to Luis?
My answer is I do believe American institutions work. I think, and I'll make a date with you, Mark, that in 5 years, we'll do this again. And we will understand, and the American people will understand, the tragedy that is taking place in our country. Do we make mistakes as a people? The answer is yes. Do the bands and bonds that hold us together in terms of our democracy? Adlai Stevenson said in the Godkin lectures at Harvard back in 1954 that America was not great because of its military power or its wealth. It was great because of its ideas, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. But those statements, those intrinsic parts of American life are what make America great. And you want America to be great? Well, clearly we've got to get rid of these clowns that are now presuming to take over our government. And as for Elon Musk and the idea that there's full transparency, I've never heard such rubbish in my life.
Well, it's a joke, yeah.
By the way, you know that I have a full head of hair, right? Can you see that? I have a full head of hair. And maybe if I say it often enough, people will believe it.
Heather Kennedy says she's with. This is what I think. I've never told you that I have faith in the American people, and I've never told you I have faith in American institutions because I don't have faith in either. That's where John and I have always gone around the schoolyard on that stuff. But I have less than zero faith in the people, says Heather Kennedy. Yeah, I'm with you, Heather.
Wait a minute. Half the people didn't vote for this.
I know, but the people generally, as reflected in, and I don't even know that. The whole thing was on the level, to be honest. But and then there's Teacher Lori, who always has something supportive to say. How is this discussion helpful? I'm not hearing solutions.
There are no solutions. Yeah, there are no solutions until we hit the midterm elections.
And that reminds me, I used to go to my therapist. I went for 5 years in Berkeley, okay, schlepping over the Bay Bridge to, I lived in San Francisco. And I go to this guy, and finally, after 4 years of it, I did what Teacher Lori did, which is, I don't know why I'm coming here. Can you tell me what the reason is?
I don't need a therapist. I need the Mark Thompson program.
No, but let me I'm making a point.
I need forums where we can speak out.
Of course, exactly. Thank you. And so that's the point. And what was explained to me and how it applies here is that in talking through and realizing the predicament that you're in, you begin to formulate solutions or at least clarity about where you are. These conversations are not always about what is the solution to this in this moment. In the constellation of issues and challenges we have as a nation, in conversations with John Rothmann and others, there are potential solutions that can become apparent. And
there are elections, for heaven's sake.
There are elections for now. I don't even know to what extent the legitimacies of elections will be encroached upon. I have very little faith in this crew to leave anything unturned. Yeah.
Then democracy is lost and the country we love is gone.
Right.
So we have to do everything we can. By the way, somebody asked me, why aren't the Democrats leading the charge? Some of them, like Sheldon Whitehouse, are trying to do that. But I want to point out to you, if you don't have the votes, there's very little you can do. And I think the real judgment day will come for the Republicans, because ultimately the American people will wake up. The American people will see what is happening, and the Republicans will not be able to blame Donald Trump. They're voting for his cabinet nominees. They are approving the kinds of things that Donald Trump is doing. And in the end, if a political party ever needed to be hit and hit hard, it is the Republican Party.
CC Ryder says Democrats have got to stop relying on Republicans to do the right thing.
They do until they have the votes.
Democratic lawmakers must grow a pair and ask the hard questions, do the uncomfortable things, and step out of the comfort zone.
They have. If you listen to the hearings for Robert Kennedy, you listen to the hearings for Tulsi Gabbard, you listen to the hearings for Kash Patel, you listen to the questions that are being posed, they are eloquently stated, they are clearly defined, and the problem is they don't have the votes. It all boils down to be able to convince the American people. And I happen to believe something very sincerely, and that is that absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. And this president believes he has absolute power, and he will be exposed that way. There is an arrogance of power and a hubris that ultimately will cause the downfall of Donald Trump. And then the question will be, will those who have supported him be willing to admit their error? And Mark, I respectfully submit to you, it is very hard for people to admit they're wrong. Now, let me just be clear. I did a podcast the other day in which is titled, I Was Wrong, because I really believed, and I was wrong, that the Congress would not approve these people that are being put in high office. That's the thing.
And once again, I'm sorry to be, the cynical one, but I told you, I thought he'd get all of his picks through. Once Hegseth made it, I thought there will be no pushback. Now he's got
You're right, and that's why I did my podcast saying I was wrong.
But I'm not, more to the point, I'm not just trying to take a victory lap. I'm trying to say that he's got these legislators completely cowed. They
fearful.
Are, yeah, they fear the brown shirts, if you want to call them that, those who were pardoned on J6. These are violent offenders. The Proud Boys are talking about, they're reconstituting and coming back stronger, and they know that they can really act with impunity. I want to get quickly before I lose you.
And I'm going to stick around for the next hour just to listen. So
okay,
I'll be listening. I want to hear what you guys do.
Thank you. But
and I hope everybody understands how important the Mark Thompson program is, and I hope you support it. Absolutely 100%.
Oh, thank you, John. Yeah, well, I appreciate it. We're crowdfunded, and we like to stay on the air, so I hope our Patreon and PayPal links are under this video. Depressed Canadian says, and thank you for the $10 super chat, Trump is accelerating the decline of America's superpower status by gutting USAID, harming the FBI and DNI, and undermining NATO. What will the world look like in a post-American world? Yeah, and this is interesting. You talk about 5 years from now, and you talk about the bounce back of American institutions. Of course, I do not agree with you on that, but I love that you have faith in those institutions. But what about these other things that happen during that 5-year period? Pulling out of the WHO. Let me just list a couple of them. Pulling out of the WHO, pulling back from NATO. It appears that NATO alliance could be very much in trouble. Declaring I was going to say declaring a trade war anyway against our allies and our geographic neighbors. What does everything look like in 5 years in the world because of America's tack toward what Trump and Musk and Hegseth and others are taking us?
Anything that Trump does can and will be reversed. We have to have the proper leadership in this country, and I believe it will happen. And I believe that those documents of freedom, which I mentioned earlier, provide the guideposts to make it work. Let me just say one thing, Mark. I'm a Jew. I understand what it means when you tear down democracy. I understand what happens. And let me say a word about transgender people. Take away the term transgender and put in any other name you want, Jew, Catholic, doesn't matter. I understand what it means to have leadership. And you will recall all my years on KGO, I said the most important thing is it matters who is president of the United States. And I think the American people will learn a lesson. I hope it isn't too late. I believe that everything can be restored to the way it should work. And I have great faith. I have to have faith, Mark. Otherwise, what are we doing here? Very frankly, what are we doing?
And here it is. John, do you still have blind faith in the American people? We addressed that already. Thank you, Luis. But I mean, I thought it was a good point.
I don't have blind faith in the American people, but I believe in the end, the American people try to do the right thing. I believe a majority of Americans voted for Donald Trump. They made a terrible error. They will see the error of their ways by the actions which Donald Trump is taking and by the people who he's putting into office.
Well, that's what was just noted, that they are serving up, and Wes is saying, a lot of MAGA videos on TikTok saying that MAGA people regret their vote, but I don't know if it's real or the TikTok algorithm showing it to me, Wes says. Thank you for the super chat. I think it's real, but again, that's not representative in polling of what people are really thinking. The MAGA people haven't all regretted their vote, I don't think.
No, but what you're seeing, and they won't all see it, but I believe a majority of the American people, we're only, remember, it's hard to believe, we're only 3 weeks into the Trump administration and 3 weeks and 2 days. I believe that these continued body blows will cause such shock. And all I can tell you is, if I were Donald Trump, you know what I'd be worried about? The Republican Party. Because if the Republican Party jumps ship, his power to do anything is gone. There's going to be another challenge, and that has to do with the courts. We have an interesting Supreme Court, and everybody says it's a conservative court. Let me again articulate the fact that some of those conservatives are going to jump ship on Donald Trump because they are more concerned about America than they are about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a real danger.
Let me just
question.
Ask Rothmann about Gaza and the West Bank, says Phineas. So give me some thoughts on this craziness coming out of Donald Trump on Gaza.
The idea of the United States taking over Gaza is absolute nonsense. I first was in Gaza in 1968. We talked then, 1968, about the beautiful beaches and the fact that you could have a Riviera. The Israelis, when they withdrew from Gaza, withdrew all the Jewish settlements, all of the Jews who were in Gaza, and said to the Palestinian Authority, make this a vacation spot, rebuild, we'll help you. And the Palestinians, frankly, including Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, did not do that. But it's pure rubbish. And Donald Trump continues to say it over and over again. And that applies, now you'll see it with Ukraine. Our allies are all completely befuddled by having a president of the United States who acts so irresponsibly. And so
it's also interesting that so much of the Middle East is it's organized around religion. It's organized around, these belief structures and traditions and all of these claims. And the reason I mention it in this context is this entire Middle East conflict can be seen as an effort for Christian supremacy. The idea somehow that you want to return to this promised land, this place where there will be the end times, and Jews and Muslims will be left behind, and Christians will rise to the kind of euphoric, wonderful place that will put them at one with their Savior. This is a real structured belief, and it is. It's not just a fringe. This is a robust part of American politics right now.
About 1/3 of the American people identify with that evangelical Christianity that you are referring to. Let me remind everyone very clearly that that is a great danger to American democracy. We are not a country in which religion is supposed to dominate. We are a country in which people can decide what they want and whether they want to believe or not believe. What Donald Trump is doing is creating, and if you see Franklin Graham, Billy Graham's son, hovering in the background on everything, it is, if
that's
Jerry Falwell were alive.
That's the reminder. I cut you off because I don't want to hear you say if Jerry Falwell were alive, he'd be rolling over in his grave.
No, he'd be thrilled. We're spending too much time together when you know my punchline.
I know your punchlines. John, thank you.
Can I just quickly, I know you have other things, and you've got
go ahead.
Johnson coming on, but I just want to say a word about J.D. Vance. Do you understand that J.D. Vance is a heartbeat away from the presidency? That J.D. Vance has just said that the executive power should be able to override the courts, that J.D. Vance is opposed to aid to Ukraine, and that he may well be the next president of the United States of America. Believe me, when Donald Trump is gone, the question will be who succeeds him and whether the Republican Party can reconstitute itself in a constructive, positive way. And
J.D. Vance will not be part of that primordial ooze. As you say, he's a very smart guy at Yale Law School. He knows better than to question the court structure of America.
Do you remember who one of the first people in our country who described Donald Trump as America's Hitler? It was J.D. Vance. And I think if Albert looks for it, you can play the clip because we've played it before.
I've told you not to ask for clips on this show. My God. Albert we don't have run a clip service. He doesn't have all these clips just waiting to go. So whatever.
That's why I'm giving him warning.
Out. This isn't a jukebox, okay? My God, man. All right.
Everybody should know in the old days at KGO, we would bark out the things we wanted, absolutely. And we had such a wonderful staff there that we got pretty much what we wanted. And all I can say is because I have full faith in Albert.
I see. Well,
I know that he can do it.
all right. Well, the words of Vance and the words of Trump knock around and echo around, and will continue to be played.
But we did not
in
mention.
future episodes.
I'm sorry, we did not mention the fear that is now permeating the immigrant community in this country, the increased power of ICE,
Right.
and the abuse of power, and the fact that Guantanamo is going to be used to house immigrants. Now, that's not the first time that's happened, but we're talking about 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 people. And, well, all I can tell you is I raise all of these things because, as you pointed out at the opening, there is so much. It is hard to identify the things that really alarm us. And
Around the Political World with John Rothmann is his podcast. It's a daily offering. There's certainly a lot to talk about. Probably feel as though you could do it 3 times a day, John. So much going on.
I could come on with you every day and we'd have more fun than that.
I so enjoy our times, and thank you for being here today.
I'm going to
John
stick
Rothmann,
stick around for your next hour. Okay.
Yeah, stick around.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on, everybody. Very excited about today's show because it's really got an additional upgrade, really. Yeah, normally this guy comes in on Tuesdays, but today I get a special dose of a Pulitzer Prize winning investigative reporter, best-selling author. He's the co-founder of DCReport.org. You know, when I look at someone like David Cay Johnston, I go, wow, that is like your best life, that incredible work. And he continues to do it as a professor at Rochester Institute of Technology. And he's with us generally on Tuesdays, this week on Wednesdays. On Wednesday, I should say, David Cay Johnston, everybody.
Hello, Mark.
Hello, sir.
Glad to be in the jukebox.
Yes. You're the favorite number that keeps getting played. Hey, David Cay Johnston, it's one of these situations in which it really is true. They have flooded the zone, and it's hard to know where to start. Yeah. I want to start with something that involves a revelation about Kash Patel and the confirmation process. He lied to Congress, again, during the confirmation process. I think there is some of that, maybe a lot of that. We saw, more than the daily recommended dose of lies associated with all of these candidates for positions in the Trump administration. But Kash Patel's nomination for FBI director was something that was already controversial, and now Dick Durbin is accusing him of having lied directly about the bureau firings, the purge at the FBI, and whether or not he was behind it. Just before I get David's comment, Albert, can you play a little bit of that Dick Durbin thing? Now, Dick Durbin, I just want to say, his manner of speaking, David, you and I talk about this, that, Democrats need better messengers. They just, Durbin is, this, what's the word? Somnambulistic or whatever, something that he induces sleep almost in his style. Do you have it, Albert? I'm stalling right now so you can get it. Okay, all right. Here he is. This is Dick Durbin talking about Kash Patel. And again, pardon his manner, but listen to what he's saying.
At the highest levels will give my Republican colleagues some pause before it's too late. Multiple whistleblowers have disclosed to my staff highly credible information indicating that Mr. Kash Patel has been personally directing the ongoing purge of senior law enforcement officials at the FBI. Let me remind you, Mr. President, Mr. Patel at this moment in time is not on any public payroll, nor does he have any authority by our government. Listen, on the morning of January 29th, the day before Kash Patel's confirmation hearing, there was a meeting between the acting leadership of the Department of Justice and the FBI. Notes from that morning meeting read, KP wants movement at FBI, reciprocal actions for DOJ. Let me say that again, quote, notes from the meeting, KP wants movement at FBI, reciprocal actions for DOJ. Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove told the participants in this meeting that he had received multiple calls from the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, the night before. Miller had pressured him because Kash Patel, KP, wanted the FBI to remove targeted officials faster, as DOJ had already done with prosecutors. The list of officials identified for termination was in the possession of a group of individuals who, according to our sources, were personally interviewed by Mr. Patel to be on what was known as the Director's Advisory Team. This advisory team at the FBI is a group of political appointees who were brought in to prepare for Mr. Patel's arrival. FBI leadership understanding of the advisory team's list was that, quote, a lot of names were people in the crosshairs.
Okay, so let's just stop there. You get the idea. Essentially, Patel, when asked if he had anything to do with the purge, said no, he's had nothing to do. And of course, as we've learned, he had everything to do with it.
Well, you have a group of people who are criminals in their mindset, now in charge of the major institutions of our government. Pam Bondi is as corrupt as it gets. She took $25,000 from a charity for her campaign for Attorney General years ago, shut down an investigation of Donald Trump's fraudulent Trump University, and her people defended taking money from a charity, which is a wrongful act. Kash Patel was on the payroll of a Kremlin-connected outfit that paid him $25,000. So you're dealing with people to whom power matters, not integrity, not principle, just power. And you're going to see a whole lot of valued federal agents forced out of the FBI by Kash Patel because they're not going to be personally loyal to Donald Trump. And of course, you're supposed to be loyal to the Constitution, not to any person. But this is not a government of law. This is a government of men, or a single man in this case. And the goal here is very clear. It is to create an unaccountable presidency, a dictator. And I've been telling people now for almost 10 years, Donald wants to be our dictator. And with what's happening in front of your eyes, I don't understand that people don't see that. And if you think, well, you know what, I'm going to be okay. I'm a white, male, wealthy Republican. Two warnings to you. One is sooner rather than later, authoritarian leaders turn on the true believers because they're a danger to them. There's plenty of history of this under dictators all around the world. Authoritarian scholars like Sarah Kendzior and Timothy Snyder at Yale have written about this. There's have a number of other lesser known people in these fields. And the second is, no, somebody may not come for you, but they're going to come for people around you that may be very damaging to your interests. But, you know, I have a piece at DC Report. It was the lead story yesterday when I was traveling to Washington, but it's not still on the front page today. And it's about how it appears that the large percentage of the American public is like, oh, well, nothing we can do. And they're going to let us slide into a dictatorship. And, you know, this is an amazing development, Mark. You know who we're depending on for our liberties? Lawyers. It's the attorneys general and the lawyers for fired inspectors general and other people. We're depending on them. What an astonishing turn that all of us are having to depend on lawyers for our liberties. And at the same time, we're seeing the richest man in the world taking part in literally killing some of the poorest people in the world. There's now at least one confirmed death from AID, the Agency for National Development, not having money to maintain hospitals. They're closing hospitals that were sponsored by AID. There's food that's not being delivered. So we will soon have children who died of starvation. All of these things are happening. And it's the richest man in the world going after the poorest people in the world. I mean, that is such a literary arc. You would think people would get it, but no. You know, go to any of the conservative websites, and this is further cleaning out the rot and corruption. And when Elon Musk says somebody at Social Security is 150 years old and they're getting their check, well, Okay, who are they? Name them. That you can't libel or harm a dead person.
Thank you.
And so let's see the evidence that you have. Donald says, "Oh, we're fighting corruption everywhere." Donald's been saying garbage like that his whole life when there's nothing there.
They've shown no math at all on any of this stuff. They make these sweeping claims. You mentioned his comments. Albert, play a little bit, if you would, of Elon Musk and Donald Trump addressing the media from the Oval Office. First of all, David, it's an extraordinary thing that, from the Oval Office, you have this guy who, and you and I agreed that Doge was sort of this, it had no formal setup, it was given no formal power. We thought that at best he'd make recommendations and Congress would have to act on them or whatever, that he was essentially given a ceremonial position because of all the money he'd dumped. Boy, were we ever wrong. This guy is really, taking a wrecking ball to government. So this same guy is now addressing the press with the agenda items that this administration is all about. Go ahead, Albert, please.
Questions. Elon, go ahead.
Sure. So at a high level, you say, what is the goal of Doge and I think a significant part of the presidency is to restore democracy. This may seem like, well, aren't we in a democracy? Well, if you don't have a feedback loop, okay, we would have to, if you sorry. So tell you, gravitas can be difficult sometimes.
By the way, cuteness, stop for a second. We break this down, which we can do during our conversation with David. And but go ahead, David.
Well,
the cuteness masks a lot,
It does, but notice something very significant in this very short clip. Donald has no use for children. His own oldest three children, who now, two of them, his sons, are still dependent on him, and Ivanka, who was until she married Jared, and they used the White House to get billions of dollars of money to invest where they get fees from it. They all said after Donald left his first wife, they wanted nothing to do with him. He was a terrible father. I think I've mentioned on your show in the past the incident when Tiffany was born to Marla Maples, that they were for a photo shoot and she needed to adjust her top before the next shoot. And she tried to hand baby Tiffany to Donald, who went back, jumped back and said, "What are you doing?" The man's never changed a diaper in his life. He couldn't imagine doing that. So this little 4-year-old goes over toward him and he pulls away. Who does that with a little child? Donald Trump. The rest of us would be like, pat him on the head or maybe even pick him up and put him on your lap. But you don't do what Donald did, pull away like that.
Well, David, what the kids said, we have that on a video. Do you want to just give it to, should we drop it on?
Yeah.
Let's just right now, this is a little digression. I wanted to get kind of into policy, but let me just play for you. It's been isolated in a couple of places and I just grabbed it off of one spot, somebody who broke it down. But Albert, play for David Cay Johnston and for everyone what he was actually saying. It starts about 55 seconds into this cut. If you don't have it, you'll have to go 55 seconds into this offering, and you'll see this breakdown. Again, I just grabbed this, so it's right off of social media. And this is what the kid actually said. Here you go.
And there was a hot mic that caught some of it. So first is this little gem.
To restore democracy. This may seem like, well,
you heard that too, right? You're not the president. You need to go away. I'll play the clip a second time. Just you watch and tell me if that's what he said.
To restore democracy. This may seem like.
That's what he said, but I'll go one better because he also said this.
The prices from one year to the next are the same, and their mortgage go over.
That one's clear today. He says, "I want you to shut your fucking mouth up." And there's already people who are like, out of the mouth of babes. But let me just put this out there for your consideration. A child this young doesn't have this profound moment where he tells off Trump. He just repeats things he's heard.
Okay, that's good, Albert. I just wanted it is weird that the kid, he's got a pretty hard edge when it comes to Donald Trump.
Yeah, I don't think any of my 8 children at the age of 4 spoke like that. They may now, but not at the age of 4. But let me point out something here. Elon Musk, as Lawrence O'Donnell pointed out last night, interrupted Donald Trump. Now, reporters shout questions and maybe interrupting a president, but I've never seen anybody interrupt a president of the United States. The opening episode of The West Wing has this great closer where Martin Sheen, as president, comes into the room, and one of the things he says, and by the way, when the president of the United States walks into a room, nobody sits down, and this woman stands up. And but there's something else I think that was revealed in this, not in the words, but in the body language, in Donald's not going after Elon Musk when Time magazine very provocatively put him behind the Resolute desk on its cover as if he's president. And he, I think in many ways, is the de facto president. Donald is facing a more than $500 million obligation in the New York State civil case, which he can't stop as president. The court in the Jennifer Flowers case with Bill Clinton made it very clear presidents are still subject to civil actions. And $88 million with interest that's close to $100 million by now in the E. Jean Carroll cases. Donald may well be in hock to Elon in some fashion. It is not Donald's style to let anyone outshine him. At the first time he went to I think it was a G20 meeting, there's a video of him pushing the president of tiny Montenegro out of the way so he could be in the front on the video. And this is just extraordinary that, Donald is bowing down to this younger man. Now, some people have said, well, he thinks of him as having another son. I don't think so. I think this is somehow tied up with Donald's finances, which are always smoke and mirrors. By the way, are you getting every day, as I am, more and more pitches, for money?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's selling, he wants you to buy a coffee cup and a jacket and all sorts of stuff.
He's cranked up the merch for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And have you ever seen any president do this? No, of course you haven't.
You don't remember the Obama coffee cups? So David, you've really actually this is a breakthrough for me because it was sitting there right in front of my face. I was wondering how Trump could so willingly just hand over everything to Musk, and the limelight mostly, as you said, over and over. I mean, Trump's in it for ego as much as everything else. He likes being the most powerful man on earth, and he likes those flexes, like when the press is there to talk to him. And the fact that he would surrender the mic, it speaks to the fact that he is in hock on some level to the point that Musk may be a rescue for him.
Yeah,
wow.
and Elon Musk has so much money. I mean, we're talking about $500 billion. At the rate things are going, 4 years from now, I'm sure he'll be a trillionaire unless there's some huge reversal. Money becomes meaningless to him. It is there's so much of it. And look what else he's allowed Musk to do. He said, "Oh, we're going to put controls on Elon so there's no conflicts of interest." Well, the FAA, Aviation Safety, was investigating his space company. And he told the head of the agency, resign or Donald will fire you. Even though he's a private citizen at this point, goes right ahead. Even as his position as special employee of the White House, he doesn't have any authority to fire anybody, but these people are quitting and clearly they're being told things. I presume they're being told, we're going to sue you, we're going to mess up your life, leave now and we won't argue over your pension. Don't trust him for a second on that. He got rid of AID, which was looking into him over Starlink. And there are a couple of other agencies where the same thing has happened. Imagine if Barack Obama had done 1% of what we've seen in the last 3 weeks in one day, the Republicans would have, in fact, impeached him.
Yes.
And you're seeing not just a dictator on the make, but you're seeing a criminal enterprise take over our government. And unfortunately, if you go onto social media, you go to any of the right-wing websites, you will see lots of people going, yeah, Donald's doing the right thing. Good for Elon. The richest man in the world is literally killing some of the poorest. And people who call themselves Christians are cheering that on.
It's astounding. And you point so correctly toward the agencies he's effectively closing down. USAID, in his crosshairs is EPA, FAA you mentioned for just the reasons that you've articulated. I talked earlier in the first hour about CFPB because I see the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau as key in regulating Musk, who wants to turn X, as you know, into a financial platform, a kind of PayPal. And the one government agency that would be the cop on the beat, he is now closing down, CFPB.
And let's remember something. This is the agency that Elizabeth Warren thought up. It wasn't exactly the way she wanted it to be, but it's largely what she proposed. She deserves the credit for it. This agency has cost us $1 for each about $6 they've recovered for consumers. I mean, how do you call that anything but a success unless you are a predatory banker? And if you're an honest banker, and that's most of the bankers, you should be cheering on this agency because it doesn't help you to have a lot of corrupt enterprises. So when Wells Fargo Bank created 8 million phony accounts, when they were tricking people with promises like, hey, we'll rewrite your mortgage at no cost and lower your interest rate, and then you found out, no, they put $13,000 of fees onto your loan, other banks should have said, oh, no, that's not good for us. This will inspire people against banks as a general rule. They're not going to remember, was it our bank or their bank? And no, you're seeing complete surrender and corruption to this administration. And the reason is that the people who are effectively thugs are going around saying, get along, get out, or we will destroy you.
He actually posted on X, RIP, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Yeah. And I mean, these are the same organization, as David is saying, is the one that got the medical debt off of your credit report, because medical debt is wildly inaccurate anyway. So it can destroy your life without even being legit. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, many people with medical debt, what happens is they can't pay. The hospital will sell that debt for 10 cents on the dollar. There are some documented cases of 2 or 3 cents on the dollar. And then they hit you with penalty interest rates, everything else in the world in an attempt to go after you. Now, we've had a few judges who've said, no, we're not going to do that. I'm not going to let you do that. But clearly it's a very profitable business, or they wouldn't be in that business. Buying something, and a debt is an asset, just like a house or a factory. Buying something for 2 or 3 cents or even a dime on the dollar should make a lot of profit. But, that goes to the core of one of the things they're going after are nonprofits. They want to eliminate nonprofit hospitals and make all of them for-profit. The record is quite clear on for-profit hospitals. They provide inferior service. They are not as safe in terms of infectious diseases, which you have to control constantly in a hospital, and other costs. They're going after education. And remember, Donald says, we love the poorly educated. 15% overhead on a federal grant, that's plenty. They have no idea how the system works and why it was designed that if you get a grant, if I were to get one at the Rochester Institute of Technology, the university would get 48% of the money. Why? Well, let's say I'm a medical researcher and I have people, we pay $50 every time they come in every third week for us to stick them with a needle for some drug experiment. We have medical waste we have to get rid of. That doesn't come out of the grant. It's paid for by the university. We have to pay the subjects. That may or may not be covered by the grant. Now, if you want to reform the system, fine, we can make the system operate differently, but that's not what they're doing. They are setting out to destroy the crown jewels of the United States. The FBI, in particular, its counterintelligence, counterterrorism function. The Consumer Finance Protection Board, which has returned so much money to people. The Environmental Protection Agency, vastly fewer people have died in the last 40 years. Well, it's been almost 55 years now since Nixon signed that law, that they're not dying from heart attacks and asthma and cancer because of unsafe water, unsafe air, particulates beyond what's reasonable in the air. And the American higher education system is the absolute marvel of the world. And they don't want to let foreign students come in unless they're from, European and Nordic sort of countries. And all of this is simply burning down the house. That's what they're out to do, because out of the ashes, the way Trump sees it, it makes him even more powerful, never mind who gets hurt. And if you don't have any empathy, if you can't even look at a 4-year-old child, then of course, you would have no qualms about doing something like this because other people only exist as either obstacles like me to what you want to achieve, or they exist as tools to be used like Kash Patel.
The claims that have, I think, effectively captured at least a bit of the narrative on the right, like a Fox News Channel type narrative, is that Elon Musk, wow, we're so lucky to have found him. I mean, Lord and Savior Donald Trump found him to help clean up government because of all the waste. Look at all the billions that Elon has pointed to that is wasteful. Of course, there, as you've suggested at the beginning of this conversation, I was mentioning it last hour, they don't show the math. They don't have any real evidence of all this. And there's just sort of this, when he talks about the Social Security fraud, I mean, that's kind of like a trope almost. We understand that, you know, Social Security can be abused, as can unemployment insurance, et cetera. But there's the kind of run amok quality that Elon Musk has. It's oddly something that people in government are tacitly going along with. I'm talking about legislators.
Oh,
is that just fear, do you think, David, or is there an agenda there?
No, I think that for many of these folks, it is absolute fear. And I've started referring to, and I do in my DC report piece, to the Republicans as the Quisling party. And if you don't know who a Quisling is, when I was a 4-year-old, I knew the word. By the time I was 6, I understood it. Quisling was the Nazi collaborator in Norway when the Germans came in. There's a wonderful movie out right now called Number 24, I think, about the one of the few survivors of the resistance in Norway. A really, really good movie on, I think, Netflix. Might be on Amazon. I think it's on Netflix. But they're the Quisling party. They're being disloyal to the country, and they're doing so out of cowardice. They don't have any spine. They're not willing to stand up for principles. They just don't want to be beaten in a primary. Well, what a horrible fate. You lost your seat in Congress of the U.S. Senate. We're not sending you to the gulag. If you've been a senator for a while, or a House member, if you can't find good employment after you leave, you probably shouldn't have been in the House in the first place. And yesterday, I spoke with one of the people I went to see, a whole lot of meetings in Washington. One of them was a very senior member of Congress who I know is respected on both sides of the aisle. And I said, what is going on that nobody will stand up to Donald? And he said, oh, they know, most of them know better. He says, some of them know, they don't get it at all. And I said, so what is it? I mean, I want to make sure I have. And he said, oh, they're hoping that we, the Democrats, will somehow bail them out of this. Something will happen and they won't have to do anything. But the fundamental issue is cowardice. It's just political cowardice. And if you take an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, domestic and foreign, and you're not willing to risk your seat in Congress, you don't belong in a public office.
Boy, that's so well said. I'm going to ask you about something when it comes to Ukraine in a moment, but I just want to put it to the side. Underdog says, it appears that the Republicans aim to privatize all services so that they can profit from them. This is something that we've said for a long time. That really is part of the end game, to privatize everything, right?
Right. And the claims that are always made that privatizing lowers costs, we have limited evidence on what it means. There are some examples where it's worked well, but there are lots of examples where it's led to higher costs down the road. Think about, among other things, that if you privatize, you have to have a return on your capital. That's going to add about 10%. But more importantly, we don't have the data anymore. So years ago in Portland, Oregon, the Oregonian newspaper, was a very good paper under the new houses, ran these stories about how the city water and sewer department was sending out these massive bills. People got $1 million bills for their water service. And because the software they had bought from, I think it was Siemens, the big European computer company, SAP, screwed up. Guess what? Almost all big computer projects have things like that. But they only reported on the government because they had access to the disclosure materials. Well, I happened to be in Oregon at the time. I went down to the state capitol on an investigative project I was doing to the Public Utility Commission, and I found out, digging around in the records there, that the exact same problems were taking place at the Portland Natural Gas Company, called, I think, Northwest Natural Gas. But nobody knew about it because it's a private company. Now, I found it out. It wasn't hard to find out, but you had to know what to look for and go to the records of this obscure agency full of jargon to know about that. And this happens all over the country. So when you go to these privatization deals, you're withdrawing data from the public record. There's just a new report out, by the way, in South Carolina, that the cost of the subsidies to big companies like Boeing getting somewhere between $800 million and $1 billion to build the Dreamliners there, which have turned out to be unbelievably riddled with problems that have cost Boeing a fortune because the workforce doesn't have the skill of the old workforce in the Seattle area. It's costing enough money in these corporate giveaways to hire 6,600 more teachers in South Carolina. A poor state, desperate for better education system. These privatization deals and subsidy deals are cleaning your pocket. They're causing you to either have higher taxes, or as shown in the case in South Carolina, this work was done by goodjobsfirst.org. goodjobsfirst.org have an excellent track record for the accuracy of their work and the reliability of it. 6,600 teachers in a small state like South Carolina. This is doing real damage. And the Trump administration is muscling big companies where they know they can use the power of the government to go after companies. So if Mark Zuckerberg doesn't knuckle under, if Jeff Bezos doesn't knuckle under, they're going to turn people loose on them from various places, from law enforcement to regulatory agencies to IRS audits. And people should be absolutely outraged about this. I don't understand why there aren't huge demonstrations in the streets. And as I point out in my DC Report piece, where are the religious leaders who should be in the forefront? Whether you're a pastor, a priest, a rabbi, or an imam, there are some speaking out. Don't misunderstand me. I just did the first podcast of something new called the Theological Talk Podcast. And I'm a non-believer, but they wanted to start with me to talk about moral issues. What was one of the things we discussed, that far too few people who should be moral leaders are speaking up. Now, maybe it's going to take time for people to respond, but if you wait too long, it'll be gone. You won't have your liberties anymore.
Sadly, religious leaders have sometimes been very much in short supply when it comes to some pretty heinous acts that this country has done in the past and appears to be part of now. You've got, I was mentioning First Hour in the religious right, having signed on in so many ways, are rejoicing about taking control of Gaza. I mean, it's the one group that in a world that wants nothing to do with this expressed Trump policy of taking ownership of Gaza. It's the one group that's cool with it because it does move them toward their end game. I mean, the true end times, actually. Now, I don't want to leave you without at least talking about Ukraine. Yeah, there's big news. Hegseth sees essentially redrawing the map and giving a lot of territory to Russia. Take us through where we are on Ukraine and your thoughts, please.
So let's go back to 1993 when the Soviet Union had already gone. Ukraine there were nuclear weapons in Ukraine. The Russians didn't want to have nuclear weapons in Ukraine that wouldn't be under their control, under the control of the Ukrainian military. So there was a treaty. The U.S. was very big in getting this treaty passed. Bill Clinton was president. That Russia promised, if you let us take all the nuclear weapons that are in Ukraine, we will never invade you. You have no worry about it. We'll never do it. Guess what? Donald Trump, who has had fortunes by his own account put into his pockets by Russians, who has had relationships with Russian oligarchs that make no sense. The land deal over the unbelievably grotesque mansion in Palm Beach, Florida, where Rybolovlev tried to explain it away by saying, well, the reason that he paid Donald 3 times as much as needed for the property was he was hiding money from his wife. You're hiding money from your wife. You don't waste it paying 3 times what something's worth. And yet journalists just accepted that word. So now Donald has called Vladimir. They've had a conversation. Donald has said, we're now going to get this war settled. You notice he didn't have a conversation with Zelensky if you had any doubts about his pro-Russian perspective. And it's pretty clear from Hegseth's comments that they intend to force Ukraine to give up a large part of its territory, the Donbass and eastern Ukraine, and probably for the Ukrainians to withdraw from the area they've occupied around Kursk. Can you imagine a U.S. president who would relinquish any part of the United States of America? We're going to give up San Diego County to the Mexicans because their army has invaded. And the only way we can stop the killing in the war is we're going to have to give up San Diego. I mean, it's just not going to happen. By what Trump is now going to try to do with Putin is force Ukraine into surrendering here. And I don't care what promise Putin makes. It's clear that you cannot trust that they will honor their word. And which is kind of strange because in commercial transactions, when the Russians made deals with America, like the making of the biggest Hollywood movie ever made there, Peter the Great, or as they call him, Peter the First, the price of gold that was used in the contract, because I saw the actual contracts, to adjust the deal went against the Russians, but they paid off in full because when they were under the Communist Party, they couldn't be like filthy capitalists and try to wiggle out of the deal. They were honorable people and they took the loss. That's not Vladimir Putin by any stretch. And the signal will be taken from this by Xi in China, who is building islands in the South China Sea, whose government is complaining about U.S. Navy ships making freedom of the seas transits, where you go through an area to establish this is international waters, we have the right to be here, so does everybody else. His efforts to bring Tibet fully under the heel of the Chinese Communist Party. He's going to see this as, the Americans will back down. Maybe it's time to go take Taiwan. Now, you know, you can make an argument for Taiwan being independent, founded by the fascist Chinese, led by the Kuomintang, criminal organization, or for it being independent. You can make an argument for independent or under China.
But we've pledged to protect it.
But by treaty, we're pledged to protect it. And is Donald Trump going to stand up to Xi if they try to invade? There's not a chance. Not a chance. So to any expansionist dictator, and that's effectively what Xi is, there are no real elections. It's a one-party state, just as with Putin. This is a signal. Go ahead, go push. And you're going to see actions by the Chinese. The shutting down of AID, done illegally, no authority. People have already died and more are going to die. What are the Chinese doing right now? They're busy in Africa, where we've stopped with our aid program, trying to make friends in Africa. Hey, you know what? You don't want your particularly pernicious virus that's been corralled to a small piece of your population to spread, which it will if we stop providing drugs or condoms in the spread of HIV. Well, we'll give those to you, and all we want from you is water rights and land, so we can grow crops when China's climate change demands a need for more crops. We just want a license to get cobalt. And so, what did Trump do? By the way, he said, "Well, if the Ukrainians want our support, they're going to have to give us $500 billion worth of mineral rights in Ukraine." This is, Donald. This is about money and power. It has nothing to do with decency and liberty.
Zelensky, I think, knew that on some level, right, David? Because he mentioned it. Like he was trying to induce some support from America by offering up these precious minerals. Yeah,
and the Republicans always have marketed themselves as the party of freedom. They are not now. They are Quislings, and they are the party of you will do it our way or else. In fact, a Associated Press reporter was barred from the White House yesterday because the AP has not adopted the Gulf of America.
Right. It's extraordinary.
They said, nope, it's the Gulf of Mexico, and there are two international bodies that make these decisions, and they haven't moved. But they barred. So, you know, if you don't speak the language we want, if you don't say it the way we want, we will destroy you. Folks, you're right on the edge of a full-blown dictatorship. And if you want to have a dictatorship, that's your right. You can vote for a dictatorship. I don't think a lot of people who voted for Trump did. And if you're going to have a dictator, do you really want to have an ignorant, self-absorbed, narcissistic bully?
Who's turned the keys over to the richest man in the world who doesn't care about any kind of balance of power, and he's surrounded by a constellation of others who also are committed to dismantling government and supporting the autocracy for their own ends. It's crazy, David. I've got to wrap up. I love our conversations. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks. Tuesday is our typical day. See you, David Cay Johnston. Bravo, my friend.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Just as long as we're recommending movies, I think David recommended, was it 24? What was the movie that he recommended? Anyway, I'll recommend to you on the privatization a free film. You can see it right here on YouTube, those of you who are watching on YouTube. It's called Iraq for Sale. And one of the segments in Iraq for Sale talks about, of course, overall, the movie talks about the enrichment of these military contractors because of this Iraqi invasion, right? We invaded Iraq and everybody got rich and, Cheney's company, et cetera. But more to the point, the privatization of various military tasks was taken on by these military contractors who needed to be trained by U.S. soldiers. You have U.S. military people on our payroll as taxpayers in Iraq training private military contractors who had no experience oftentimes, watch the movie, you'll see it, in that which they're being trained around. And we're paying, the American taxpayer is paying, I think it was $150 an hour to the military contractor person who's being trained by our GI who's making, I don't know, $15 an hour. But somehow it made sense to the military contractors who own American government to put the military contractor in there, the private industry in there, to prosecute the war in Iraq, as opposed to the GI who was making a fraction of what this military contractor was. It's called Iraq for Sale, and you will see it exposed nakedly there. So, Kim?
Yes.
I love to hear myself speak, as you know.
Do you know who I am?
Yes, I am.
You
kind
do
of
have
a
a
big
nice.
deal.
You do have a nice voice. So,
but I must move on. So this will be a. All right, that was unnecessary. All right, we like to on Wednesdays take stock of the planet, and we do it in a segment we call "It's the Planet, Stupid."
The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet.
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet, stupid.
No. It's the planet, stupid.
Our guide for It's the Planet, Stupid is eco-journalist Belinda Waymouth. Hello, Belinda. Thank you.
Hi. How are you?
We are, well, always better for visiting with you. There is, in all of the stuff that's being dismantled in government right now, I think lawlessly, and I think in this reckless way, sadly, so much of it has to do with the planet and with those agencies that are watching critical, fragile aspects of our involvement with the planet.
Yes, I'm just going to carry on right from where, you left off with your last, guest. We're in this crazy authoritarian moment, and it's dangerous. It's really dangerous what's happening. And what's happening, I want to talk about NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. But I did also want to mention this is just sort of silly, the executive order that was signed on Monday by Trump to ban paper straws in federal agencies. Paper straws bad, bring back plastic. Enjoy some, plastic particles with your soda, and yes, they will get to your brain. Sorry about that. But Trump has been pardon this, but has been a straw man since his re-election bid against Biden. During those rallies, he was selling for $15 10 reusable thick red plastic straws that had his name on them. Can you believe? Of course, he loves to put his name on everything. It was a way to make money, and it was a way to also rile up, his base and anger at single-use bans of plastic items, bags, straws, all kinds of things that are happening nationwide because everyone knows that the scourge of plastic is so terrible. And here's the thing about plastic straws. I'm going to do a little demonstration because for most of us, I know some people do need straws, but we are anatomically, look, I can drink my cup of tea.
Oh.
Without a straw. It's like, do we use straws for our coffee, for our wine? No, we don't. We've been sold this line of absolute BS that we have to have them in our glasses of water and our sodas, and we just don't. And I absolutely, there are some people who need a straw. They can't drink without them, and they should absolutely have access to them. But the rest of us, bringing back the plastic straw, I mean, it's sort of petty and ridiculous, and I think it's a direct result of Biden phasing out. There were going to be no more plastic straws in federal agencies. It was all paper.
It's messaging. It's plastic straws. It's flush the toilet as much as you want. It's take the shower you want. I mean, it's like, can you believe you got to flush the toilet like 4 times now? That's all going to change under a Trump administration. This is the stuff that is, in some ways, it doesn't matter. And it actually does carry the day from the standpoint of messaging. It's that, all that woke stuff about how you don't want straws anymore. I mean, we're not going to have them in the federal government. That's all going away. I'll bring straws back. It means nothing for the most part. And of course, you're right. By the way, just because we're talking about straws, I just have a question for you. I'd always heard that women, or men maybe now, who wear lipstick, they like straws because they don't get the whatever it is on their lips. That was a breakthrough, and I learned that some years ago. I get it. Okay. There is that.
I think women would give up the plastic straw to not have pieces of plastic in their placentas and in their breast milk. For the just so they don't get their lipstick on the rim of their wine glass. I mean,
it does feel like an odd trade off. You're absolutely right.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
But in any case, the paper straw ban is
it's an executive order signed on Monday, if you can believe. I mean, the thing is, I'm trying to be a curious observer. Sort of sit back and just watch this second Trump presidency. In action, but it's moving so fast. And the other thing that happened this week, and this I think is very, very important, and this absolutely ties into Project 2025. And even though Trump isn't sort of coming out and saying he endorses everything in it, he is nominating those authors of that, manifesto, because it is a manifesto, to cabinet positions. And what happened this week? So NOAA, which Project 2025 calls a primary component of the climate change alarm industry.
Which is not at all. I mean, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, I know a lot about it because I dealt, in weather forecasting with it for many, many years. Go ahead.
Yeah, and they're extremely important. I mean, they were warning LA 2 days beforehand that, those fire conditions were coming. They were warning them. But this week, NOAA scientists got told they had to stop communication with foreign nationals, aka the network, the global network of scientists who share all their monitoring, the radar, the satellite information that they get, the models that they're using to see what's happening, in the ocean, in the atmosphere, and then alert us when there are these terrible storms. But now NOAA, no, you can't be talking to those people. I mean, NOAA scientists wrote back and said, not even emails and it's Elon Musk who, and his henchmen who've been going through these national agencies who are now, I've got to ask, this is the thing I think about, when Trump and Elon Musk are together, they just don't talk about Tesla. They just don't talk about, the fact that, he made his money from, electric vehicles. We pretend that didn't happen. So
he made his money from U.S. subsidies on EVs, and that's really and the sale of batteries, et cetera. He got a lot of credits. Essentially, that's what he energy credits are really how he made Tesla profitable.
Right. So now he and his henchmen are going into NOAA. What they're trying to do is scrub the websites of any mention of climate change, methane, greenhouse gases, environmental hazards, all those things. And then One of the things that Project 2025 really want is no more money spent on climate change research in NOAA. And this is really nuts because NOAA is, the work that they do is so valuable. And one of the things that they were an initiative of the leader who just stepped down. What's his name? I've got it
I don't
here
know his
somewhere.
name. Sorry, I can't help
In
you.
January, he said he was stepping aside, Rick Spinrad. And, he calls NOAA the National Environmental Intelligence Agency. I mean, they're so important. And they had an initiative of, for how to make the United States climate ready to help us be resilient. So to want to dismantle the 12,000 federal employees who work there to stop this research. I mean, what Project 2025 is talking about doing is eliminating it. This will horrify you as an ex-weather guy, Mark. Get rid of the National Weather Service, and instead we'll have these this privatized.
Yeah, that's what they're. Everything's about
privatized.
privatization.
Like the app that we all had on our phones. During the fires, the watch duty, where we could see the winds, we could see where the air was bad. But you need a federal agency that, by the way, runs on the smell of an oily rag. I mean, it costs a US citizen 6 cents a day to have NOAA. And I think for the information that they are providing and how important that is, but
I do think also this is interesting what Michael Reich says. Do I trust the CDC website when I research bird flu? This kind of censorship is just incredibly stupid. In other words, the privatization to which you've referred, which will fill that void, that's the idea. Can you trust it? Can you have confidence in it? I mean, the kind of vast network of cooperation that you need is beyond private industry for the most part.
Yeah. You need a federal agency that's unbiased and is working really closely with their counterparts all over the globe because, as we, I never stop on this stuff. The storms are going to get worse. The danger is going to get worse. So to dismantle our, National Environmental Intelligence Agency, as its outgoing leader calls it, is just, it's insane. And then I was also thinking, does Trump bear a grudge against NOAA because of Sharpiegate? I mean, is it just a little bit of a thorn in his side? Sharpiegate, he'll never live it down. And what he made the leaders of NOAA do,
That actually is interesting. I was reading something the other day. I'm trying to remember what it was. Something about the guy or the Trump people identified who was involved in pushback on Sharpiegate, and they went after them this time around.
Yeah. And the thing about Sharpiegate is he made an absolute mistake when he said that, Hurricane Dorian was heading for Alabama. It wasn't. And rather than just walk it back, he couldn't, handle, looking like a fool. And so he doubled down. His administration, strong-armed NOAA, the leadership of NOAA, and they released a letter. They didn't sign it, but after several days, they released this letter. They put the, Sharpie pointing towards Alabama, and they said that Hurricane Dorian could possibly hit Alabama. And NOAA shouldn't do that. And you also shouldn't be strong-arming, a federal agency that's supposed to be, nonpartisan into saying something. When a president makes a mistake, the president should say, "Oh, I misspoke," and silly me. Everyone makes an,
Sure, you could do it. You could have done it a billion ways. You could have said, an earlier report I saw actually did mention that. I looked at something and someone mentioned it to me. I'm going to talk to that person later because that was a mistake. But however you want to put it, you can farm it out, Yeah. But he's, and you talk about strong arming, that's what's happening. That's the coin of the realm of this administration. They are strong arming all scientists and all officials associated with these agencies.
Yeah. And that's what, an authoritarian dictator does. You strong arm and you get them, to get on board with your message, even if your message is horribly wrong. And the thing that happened with Sharpiegate is, all these people in Alabama were calling the National Weather Service. Is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? And so they went out on Twitter and said, oh, no, absolutely not. Not realizing that Trump had said it nationally. And, then it became this, fracas, and they had to walk it back. But I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm sorry, our time is so short, but I wanted to get to something that I know wanted to get to, and that is migration. And the fact that migration is being supercharged by a lot of these policies to which we referred. You wouldn't think necessarily there's connective tissue, but there is. Yes. Well, the thing that's so interesting is, obviously one of the, big scandals that we've been, looking at these past couple of weeks is USAID and how 97% of that workforce is going away. Well, a couple of months ago, the Biden administration put in place an initiative that was to share satellite data with Central American countries that are really in the path of these dangerous hurricanes to help them. And the goal of the initiative is twofold. One is that you want to reduce suffering, you want to save lives, you want to help these people. The second goal of it was that if you help people by giving them warning and using part of the USAID budget. And by the way, it was only $6.6 million a year. It was a tiny amount of money, but it was to help right down to the granular level to help families in Guatemala be more resistant on their farms, wherever they were, to these terrible storms coming in. Well, with the, sort of the Xing out of USAID, that initiative goes away. And there was a research paper that came out last year that showed that when there was extremely dry growing seasons, and this was in Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, the push factor in migration, it bumped up migration, which obviously comes here, it goes northward, it comes to the States, by 71%.
Wow.
And after we get a Category 4 hurricane hit Central American countries, that also is a huge push factor for migration to here. And so by getting rid of USAID and this initiative, Trump is actually going to be, encouraging a thing that he really ran against. We're going to stop migrants. But one of the ways you stop migrants is you stop the push factors that happen in their countries. There's the pull factor of why you want to come to America, but there's the push why you want to leave your country. And we need to be helping these countries minimize those push factors. And when you think that initiative was going to cost $6.6 million annually, that is pennies in comparison to what we spend on border control.
It's such a minuscule amount of money. You're right. This is coming in from Karen Cooper for you, Belinda. News yesterday in Hawaii, there's a vacuum machine used in Hawaii to remove microplastic from sand. Almost 100% effective, says Karen Cooper.
Wow.
That's kind of interesting.
To look that up.
Well, maybe we'll put that into the mix. You've talked a lot about the inundation of plastic. And so that is kind of, I mean, it's interesting that this 5-alarm fire associated with government and the dissolving of so many of these critical institutions, scientific, et cetera, it still coexists with innovation and the idea somehow that we know we're polluting the planet and we know that we are drowning in our own waste, plastic, et cetera. And there is innovation to try to put a dent in that. I don't know. Fascinating.
No, this is the thing. And it's sort of, it's the awful, we're in that push-pull situation again. And we're going to be here for the next, 4 years at least, where we have these innovations and all these things that want to go, that are going to be going forward in spite of, what Trump and Project 2025 want to achieve. But we're just slowing down the progress that we so need to be making. I mean, especially with, greenhouse gas mitigation. I mean, this is crazy to stop NOAA doing research into, climate change and weather and where we're headed.
Well, it's really worse than that. I'm going to talk tomorrow. I just didn't want to bog your segment down, but I'm going to talk tomorrow about what's happening at EPA and they're rolling back. And by the way, the key is not just what they're doing, but the guy behind it is a oil and energy billionaire who supports Trump. They are the basic carbon monoxide laws that regulate the amount of tailpipe emissions you can have. They're being rolled back now at the EPA at the behest of this guy who is a Trump appointee. So, it's these are, and it's important to keep stock of these things because, as you say, best case scenario, Democrats get back in charge, or some opposition party gets back in charge, and maybe some clear-headed policies can be instituted, but it will be rolling back a lot of the new policies that are coming into effect that will, without question, amplify pollution and amplify the problems that we have as a result.
Yeah. It's sort of like we're on a spinning top, and we spend half the time, spinning in the right direction, and the other half we're spinning in the wrong direction. And if this is going to be this, every 4 years, it's so crunch time and so imperative that we do the right thing. And it's just hard when you've got so many people heading in the right direction, but you've got a lot of people digging in their heels and not wanting to change direction.
So true. Here's the word out of Honolulu, just to cap it out. A beach cleaning machine moved from Hawaii Island to the shores of Oahu this week to take on a new beach cleaning project. It's called the Hula One, Belinda. It translates to bring back to life and restore sands. It removes microplastics from the sand. Over the last 20 years, volunteers have recovered more than 700,000 pounds of microplastics in nets and lines along the coastline near Camilo Point in Kau on Hawaii Island. These maybe Kim probably knows these places. Hula One has proved almost 100% effective in removing microplastics and has made a significant impact on beach cleaning efforts. This is a good story, Belinda. I'm so glad that we could find it.
It is. And you found it for me. Thank you so much.
I know. That's extraordinary. This is really a role reversal.
Thank you, Karen. This is very cool.
I'm supposed to have the bad news, and Belinda's supposed to bring the good news. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Belinda.
We'll switch positions. Now, the only thing now is this able to get up the microplastics, but not also take important parts of the ecosystem with it? There must be some kind of filter in there because
it looks like a straight vacuum. I don't know. As you say, it looks like that's all plastic and sand. Here it is being demoed. We're showing it to you now if you're watching on YouTube. We do see them returning the sand minus the plastic.
That's so great. And then you see just plastic. Oh, of course, because of the density. So you can get the plastic which floats on top. And then hopefully there aren't any, precious microbes from the sand going
right.
up.
It's
amazing. It's amazing. But we really, I love it. I love it. Thank you.
So we need what, 400,000 more of those machines.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the beach here, but after the Pacific Palisades fire and the rain, the amount of trash that's on our beach is pretty crazy. So yes,
and it was not exactly a pristine beach to begin with. Yeah.
No.
Belinda, I adore our time. We've had stuff to worry about, stuff to be downcast about, and then stuff to be encouraged by. So we've been around the horn. You can find Belinda on Blue Sky. Yeah, Blue Sky her. Belinda Waymouth is Waymouth, and we love our visits with you on Wednesday. It's the Planet Stupid for today. Bye, Belinda.
Bye, everyone.
More.
It's the Planet Stupid. No, it's the Planet Stupid.
Next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Tell me something good, Albert, on my way out. Tell me something good, Kim. Damn it, I need to feel good. I need to feel good, baby.
Okay, I'll tell you something
me up.
good.
I need to feel good.
Why are you yelling?
How about there's going to be a boxing match at Alcatraz? There you go.
What?
Oh, my God. How did this happen? We didn't even get to Kim's news. That was obviously going to be one of her great stories. I don't know.
It's okay.
We started in a kind of off-balance way, but we got right away. Great show as usual, says Carrie. I agree. I thought it was a really good show. We had a thing happen. Albert was late to our meeting, and we thought, oh, my God, is Albert, where's Albert? We had like a where's Albert moment. And then he showed up, with like not a lot of time left. And I thought, this is crazy. He's not going to. But then he rallied everything like a magician. He literally rallied everything exactly the way I wanted it in like 7 minutes time.
Albert shines under deadline and pressure. He's got it.
It does. It is true that I was astounded.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah. And he does. I think he likes a deadline. Yeah.
I know what I wanted to tell you. Have you seen that video on Facebook, a bunch of social media sites of the various celebrities responding to Kanye West's Nazi t-shirt?
Yeah, it's
and they're wearing these t-shirts that have the middle finger with I think the Star of David on the hand, and they're basically flipping off Kanye West. But the story today is that video is a deep fake.
Are you kidding?
I thought it looked completely real. I bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Now,
apparently,
can we show any of it, or will be demonetized if we showed it, Albert? We can't play the news or the music.
I mean, it's a deep fake, so I don't know.
Anyway, it's not important, maybe, but
yeah, it's
but it's extraordinary. I thought it was totally legit.
Yeah, I thought it was too. There's a self-proclaimed generative AI expert, creator, and advertiser named Ori Bejarano who posted the video on YouTube. And apparently, it isn't this, according to news today, it isn't real. I'm still have a hard time believing that it wasn't real.
Well, I'll tell you what's also amazing to me is that in a way, it does square with what I was thinking, which was, how did they get all those celebrities together and put this spot together in such a short time? I mean, Kanye does this hateful thing on Super Bowl Sunday, and the Monday, the next day, they have this spot completely put together. It's extraordinary. They must have started shooting right away. But as it turns out, they didn't shoot at all. It's extraordinary. If I could say it's extraordinary one more time.
I think it's Adam Sandler that's at the end, and it looks like there's a bunch of people in the background taking pictures because flashes are going off, and it just looks like, oh, this is the real deal.
It looks. Albert, go ahead and play a little bit of it. This is insanely. I can't believe this. Yeah,
it's Hava Nagila,
Spielberg, Seinfeld.
Schwimmer.
Sacha Baron Cohen. You've got it's these are very high profile celebrities. Jack Black. There's Bloomberg. I mean, that you get Simon and Garfunkel back together. I mean, again, this is the kind of shoot that would take months to hook up. Yeah. Woody Allen, and as it turns out, and it's so well done with them standing up with the finger. Gosh, it's amazing. And here is fake. And wow.
Right?
Wow.
I mean, that was a surprise to me. I think I watched it like 4 times thinking, oh my God, look at all these people. And I was trying to figure out who everyone was. And then to see today, it's a deep fake. That's how good deep fakes can be.
I think they're good. You can see this B.A. Ware says, I definitely thought it was. I can definitely tell this is AI. I mean, now that Kim has told you it's AI, you may look for certain things. Looks AI, says Dillette. Okay, maybe I'm just an idiot.
Okay.
It looked legit to me, man.
It fooled me, you guys. Maybe I'm easily.
Well, the only thing that I will point to is what I said before, which I couldn't figure out how they marshaled all of the different elements in such a short time. But apart from that, it didn't look like they move like cartoons, says Heather. I don't know about that. It looked like slow motion to me.
Right. It looked like they slowed it down to like make a point. I don't know.
The Sandler thing worked for me at the end. I thought it looked really legit. But
where people were like crowded around taking photos of him like it was, he was on a set. I don't know.
That's I'm glad
real to me, everybody.
Totally glad you mentioned that. Let's just quickly address some comments on the way out. Randy says, I'm thinking that Zelensky in Ukraine knows he's about to get screwed by Trump and Putin. Yeah, I think that's true. And he's trying to, as I mentioned to David Cay Johnston, produce some inducement for the United States to be advocates for Ukraine. That inducement would be that you could exploit some of the precious minerals that they have in Ukraine that could be useful for any number of things. But I don't know. I think it's you're right, kind of a losing cause. Richard Delamater says, I asked the kid next door who would have voted for Kamala if he liked the Beatles. A, wasn't that Paul McCartney's backup band? Because that's the guy who said I would have voted for Kamala if he'd been on Joe Rogan. And by the way, there's something on that. I can talk about that tomorrow. A lot of you contacted me on that Rogan actually, they agreed to be on Joe Rogan, then Rogan canceled at the last second, and there was behind that was Trump and so thank you, those of you who've gotten to me on that. I'll share that information tomorrow. Luis says, where's the link to vote to make California part of Denmark? Seriously, Cruella DeVille just got confirmed Director of National Intelligence. Yeah. She loves dictators is the hashtag. Yeah, it's extraordinary. Really is extraordinary now. On Kash Patel perjuring himself in front of that Senate committee in confirmation because he was actually behind the purge that he said he had nothing to do with at the FBI. AV says, when has perjury ever stopped a Trump nominee?
Clearly never. Yeah.
Eugenio hits me with a $5 super sticker.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Eugenio. Thank you. Why are Dems so silent? Says Karen. I think Dems are seeing a couple of things, one of which is that the politics of the moment don't favor them. Somehow the Republicans are playing the politics of the moment better, and as a result, you see polling that is in support of Trump. I think the Democrats are running around. I'm not saying I would still full-throatedly call this crap out. I mean, it is blatantly illegal what's happening. You have Elon Musk, again, some kind of informally deputized guy who is going in there with his henchmen, the 18 to 26-year-olds, and they're getting access to the U.S. Treasury. And it's not just read-only. I told you that from the very beginning. Then they said, oh, no worry, it's just going to be two people and they'll have read-only. And then they later now reveal, oh, by accident, it wasn't just read-only. Everybody had access, and they put in these back doors to be able to monitor the Treasury moving forward so Musk can keep track of that. All of that's illegal. USAID, closing it down is illegal. Offering the buyout to everyone in federal government, all of that's illegal. These are absolutely illegal things going on. Well, nothing's happening.
Apparently, it's legal if you can't enforce it.
Yeah,
if there's nowhere to stop, no one to stop you, then just go on ahead.
Thank you. Peter McLaren, the Venezuelans in Florida regret it. When you talk about regretting votes, and many of those who voted for Trump might regret it, I suggested that in polling, it seems as though there's still a lot of people who don't regret it. But he's saying the Venezuelans in Florida regret it, as do the Arabs in Michigan. They regret it. But it needs to hit those who've lost their jobs because of these bad policies. Yeah. There's a quality of owning the libs associated with this. So sometimes even if I guess if you've lost your job, that's pretty, but there are ways to farm that out to other things. Certainly the Arabs in Michigan, that was so stupid. I mean, we talked about it in the show. You're going to get bitch slapped so hard by Trump that you'll run to Netanyahu. It's disgusting what they're going to do to you. And still, I made the point over and over. I mean, it wasn't we had a lot of points to make, but when it came to the Middle East, it sucks. The choice is sucky, but you have to vote against Trump if you only care about the Middle East. And the Arabs in Michigan, that was your single issue. My heart breaks. My heart breaks. It's awful. But and then Kevin says and reminds us a majority of people did not vote for Trump! A plurality did, but it was a minority. Facts matter. Yeah. I don't know who said maybe we. Thank you for correcting that. If it needed correcting, I don't know. Maybe it did. This from Depressed Canadian. Thank you for a $20 super chat. It's important to be sober about the future, but not nihilistic. George W. Bush is hosting masterclass videos about leadership, so we shouldn't underestimate the public's short political memory. We need legal accountability. It is astounding the way George Bush has reconstituted himself as this kind of avuncular storytelling painter who is now leading his best life in this last chapter.
God, suddenly he doesn't look so bad.
He absolutely does. Well, I get it from an authoritarian standpoint. It wasn't, but what was his authoritarian act? Anybody?
Yeah, we scooped into Iraq without the proper evidence.
Thank you. That's exactly right. And that's something that was horrifying on its own level. It's horrifying for the loss of life, destabilizing for the region, cost us in so many ways, economic and others. It was awful. It was,
and for what?
Right. And awful understates it in the extreme. So yeah, he's, I think.
But you know what that is? At least he wasn't undermining American democracy. At least, our country wasn't, the risk of our country not being our country anymore wasn't staring us in the face.
Fair enough, but they, I don't even like to, that's a poison pill either way, as far as I'm concerned. Cousin Erie, but I take your point. Cousin Erie, with a $6 super chat, says, by 2026, much of the destruction will be nearly impossible to reverse. Of course, I agree with you, and that's what really bums me out. But what is Nevets Forever says, unfortunately, our brave new digital world has made a calm, quiet speaker like Durbin obsolete. Screaming and yelling and hype is the only thing that gets attention today. Yeah, you're right, of course, but I think, sadly, Durbin's just older and he can't make I just think he was making great points, Dick Durbin was, and I just feel as though he's not capable of punching through the noise quite the way you do need to, make points emotionally and passionately if you're in Congress. I mean, it's a medium. You know what I mean? No one's going to read your essay. And so you need to communicate it. And so, yeah, I think Durbin is challenged from the standpoint of messaging, but he's clearly, very smart and incisive thoughts and evidence was introduced under Dick Durbin today. Elon is musking the truth, says her. I get it. Yeah. Thank you for the super chat, Harry. Don't forget about the Neuralink investigation, says Alex, for animal abuse with monkeys. Yeah, what they did with monkeys and cats, and it's despicable and grotesque. Trump is going to outlaw all adverse weather, so we don't need NOAA. Oh, that's good.
Oh.
Wow, of course.
Got it.
I didn't even think of that.
It's fair winds and calm
Rhonda
seas
says,
here on out.
Thank you, Mark T., for being on time. Yeah, well, you know it. You know what? This is a thing I didn't like, and this is how I have to find my own way sometimes. When I wasn't here, there was sort of a thing that it was celebrated that the show starts a little bit late, and it kind of bummed me out. You know what I mean? I don't think that's not what we want to do. But actually, the fill-in host was encouraged to start late. So I'm putting my foot down. The show starts on time.
Why are you yelling?
Am I right?
What's on time, though?
This is a man with anger. This is a man that has resentment towards you.
Mark, had Facebook never been created, would Trump have won either 2016 or 2024 election? That is such a provocative question.
Mm-hmm.
Michael D. asking, had Facebook never been created, would Trump have won either 2016 or 2024? I think 2016 would not have been won by Trump had it not been for Facebook. I think that that's a fair point. I think by 2024, the machine was really cranked up. I think there's so many things that would even dwarf Facebook in their effects. So, but that's fascinating. Thank you for that. Love all of that. Well, we could continue all day. I really could.
The Mark Thompson Show.
But then the after party live, those people would be after me. And those people are very prone to outbursts and
what?
Their own kind of anger. You know, the overlords. Tomorrow is a great show. David Katz will join us. And boy, if you thought you needed a lawyer before this week started, you really need a lawyer now. So we will have David Katz tomorrow. Is there anything else in terms of a guest tomorrow, Kim?
I think so.
All right, everybody. This is
I don't know.
I mean, I am.
What?
Okay.
No, just
All
David
right.
Cat.
All
Just David
right.
Cat. Only David Cat.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. And until then, Shadow.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
The After Party Live is going down on the After Party Live channel.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Out of time. Bye-bye.